Chapter 7 March. Ronnie. When Miss Rasmussen switched everyone's seat around, I was put at the same table as our genius in resident, Brenton Demachi. So I figured this was perfect. If any of those D Squad jerks was going to spill the beans, it would be him. He couldn't tell a lie to save his life. This would be my chance to get the truth out of him. I tried to get all buddy buddy with him at first, making like I was his friend. I offered him gum. I asked him if he wanted to hang out after school. I asked him if he wanted to take a hike in the canyon sometime. I asked him if he wanted to play ball or something. Nothing. I couldn't get him to crack. He always had an excuse. Whatever he was hiding, he wasn't saying. Finally, I just said to him, I knew what he was up to, and he better let me in on it or I was going to tell everybody. And he says, yeah, and exactly what am I up to? I didn't have anything to say, so I just shut up. He had me, and that got me mad. Sam. Well, I lost again. My dad attacks with his queen and rook at the same time, and it's like there are these intersecting laser beams shooting all over the board. My pieces were all locked up and in each other's way. So I bring my chessboard into class, and we all try to think of every possible move I could make to get out of the situation. But it's hopeless. Brenton says I'm zugzwag. That means that any move you make only makes your position worse. I had to resign. Afterward, my dad sends me an email telling me how proud he is of me. He says that if I put up a good fight, when I was little, I remember he used to let me win at games and sports. I would beat him all the time. But he said I was getting too old for that, and I'd have to learn how to handle losing because in the real world, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. It made me feel good. We started a new game. Miss Rasmussen. One day I noticed that the homework turned in by Brenton, Kelsey, and Judy was remarkably similar, except for the handwriting. This was after I had switched their seats around. I also noticed that the four of them still left school together at the end of the day. I don't know why it took me so long to notice the similarities in their work. With so many papers to correct every night, I just didn't make the connection. And their work was so well done. I tend to notice the kids who make a lot of mistakes, not the kids who get everything right. I'd hoped that after I'd been teaching for a few years, I won't be so overwhelmed with work and will be able to pay more attention to things like this. Sam. Miss Rasmussen pulls me aside after school one day and says, what an awesome job I'm doing on my homework. I say thanks, and I try to get out of there as fast as possible. Then she asks me if I ever copy off anybody. Now that I'm looking back on it all, I guess I should have been insulted. I mean, she was basically saying that I'm too dumb to do such good work on my own. But I was cheating, so I wasn't too insulted. I say no, I do not copy off anybody. And that was the truth. Technically, I never copied my homework off Brenton or Judy or anybody. I didn't have to. Belch did the homework for me. But I didn't tell Miss Rasmussen that. Kelsey. The three of them got all bent out of shape after Miss Rasmussen had that talk with Snick. They decided that me and Snick had to start getting some of the answers wrong so it wouldn't look like a machine was doing the homework for us. So now we had to cheat so it wouldn't look like we were cheating? What a hassle. I can make mistakes just fine on my own. Brenton. It became necessary to rewrite the Belch software to program in intentional mistakes at random intervals for Snick and Kelsey's homework. That was an interesting challenge, and I enjoyed it immensely. It's easy to design a machine that will work perfectly all the time. It's hard to design one that would work perfectly just most of the time. It goes against the nature of machines. It reminded me of what they did with the Post-it notes. See, they created an adhesive that was sticky, but not too sticky. If Post-it notes were stickier, they would not serve their purpose. You wouldn't be able to pull them off and stick them somewhere else. They're perfect because they don't work very well. In other words, they're perfect because they fail. That was what I had to accomplish with Belch. Police Chief Rebecca Fish. Received a call on Saturday afternoon, March 16th. There was a break in at a house of the DeMonchi boy. Nobody was home at the time. There was a broken basement window, some minor damage. Nothing was stolen. Didn't really look like a professional job. They ran when the alarm went off. It was a prank by a kid, I guess. Happens all the time. Ronnie. I didn't try to break into Brenton's house. I don't care how many times you ask me. I didn't do it. And you can't prove that I did. Judy. We have this school paper called the Grand Canyon Times. It's not a real paper, just some stories and poems that kids write, and it's stapled together. It comes out a few times a year. Anyway, there's a gossip column in there. Usually the gossip is silly stuff like who likes so and so or which teacher wears a wig, stuff like that. But right in the middle of the page, there was an item about the homework machine. I freaked out. The Grand Canyon Times. And rumors are flying around the Grand Canyon that certain people in grade 5 have invented a mysterious machine that does their homework for them. Can you believe that? Where can we get one of those and how much does it cost? Sam. Yeah, I freaked out when I saw it. Whoever planted that thing in the paper was a real rat. And it wasn't me. I figured it couldn't have been Brenton. Wasn't so sure about Judy or Kelsey. Kelsey. After that thing was in the paper, we had to have another stupid meeting. Sam tried to get one of us to confess, but nobody did. We decided that we couldn't meet at recess anymore, and we couldn't be seen talking to each other at school. Judy was totally paranoid that we were going to get caught. Ronnie. Okay. I was the one who tried to break into Brenton's house. I had to find out what they were up to. What are you going to do? Throw me in jail? I didn't cheat on my homework, and I had nothing to do with the item in the paper. You'll have to pin that one on somebody else. Look, I didn't know if they had a secret machine or not, but it sounded believable. And if they did have a machine, it wasn't fair to the rest of us. Why should I have to sit there for hours doing my homework by hand when somebody else can just push a button and have a machine do it for them? I wasn't the only one who felt that way. I heard the other kids talking about it. Brenton's mom. It was toward the end of March when a stranger knocked on our door one morning. Brenton was at school. This man asked if he could ask me a few questions. First, it was simple questions like how many years I'd lived in the house and things like that. Then he started asking me what computer equipment we had and what we do with it. I didn't like the whole idea of this stranger asking me these questions, and I asked him kindly to leave. I was frightened. I didn't catch his name, though. Kelsey. We had to have another stupid meeting because some guy was snooping around Brenton's house. I wonder if it's that Milner guy who's stalking me. We decided that we'd have to move Belch. I didn't want it at my house, and Judy said she didn't want it at her house. So we moved it to Snick's house. What a pain it was carrying all that stuff. The computer must have weighed a ton. We had to put it in a wheelbarrow. Thinking back on it now, I noticed one weird thing that I never mentioned to anyone. When we unplugged the computer to move it to Snick's house, that little red light did not go out.